Our good friend Matt Staver, founder and chairman of the Liberty Council. They are a constitutional law firm doing great work across the country defending our religious freedoms. And he joins us now. Matt, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Thank you, Tim and Ed here. Just before we get into this case, what do you think about what we were just commenting on?
Well, I agree with you 100%. You know, it's not banning the weapons that's going to ultimately resolve this. In fact, these weren't his weapons anyway. You know, if you ban weapons, you're going to take weapons away from law-abiding citizens. You're going to put them into the hands of people who are lawbreakers. If you look at some of the places in this country that have the strictest gun restrictions, like Washington, D.C. or Chicago, they have some of the highest crimes. If you look at Australia, where they tried to ban weapons in some other foreign countries, what happened is crime has increased. Because all you're doing is you're taking away the weapons from the law-abiding citizens, and people who are wanting to commit a crime, they can. If you move over to China, it's not guns that's the problem there. It's knives. We've had recent reports of multiple situations where someone comes into the public schools in China, and they knife the kids, and they're killing them or injuring them with knives. But you never hear about anybody, talking about knife control. We have 700 kids each year that drown in swimming pools in someone's backyard. We don't talk about banning swimming pools. We got more people that are killed in automobile accidents. You don't talk about banning automobiles. But whenever somebody commits a crime based upon using a weapon, all of a sudden the left wants to do away with the Second Amendment and ban weapons. It's not the weapon. It's a core issue that I think predates the weapon. We have people talking about mental illness. Well, it was in Johnson's days where he decided to put all the people who were otherwise getting treatment out on the streets and boot them out of the mental facilities. And we paid the consequences from some of that. But if you go to the real root problem, and I think Mike Huckabee touched on this, and he got blasted for it. When we marginalize God and we boot God out of our public schools and we teach secularism, we no longer teach values, and we try to go on in life as though God doesn't exist, there is no ultimate answer that we have to be accountable for in an afterlife. What ultimately happens is you fill that with other kinds of things. In this particular case, I believe the boy who did this was very much involved in violent video games. You remove God from the culture, you ultimately have consequences. It doesn't justify what's happened, but I'm telling you, you have consequences. And so banning the weapons is not going to result in fixing those underlying root causes that we have to spend more time talking about. When we move away from our founding principles and from God, there are consequences that society ultimately pays. And, the founders believed that religion and morality were the twin pillars that would hold America together. And if we removed religion, Judeo-Christian teachings from our communities and our schools, then the people would no longer be self-restrained. They'd no longer be moral. The entire republic would collapse. And I think we're seeing some of the results of that.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Matt. Matt Staver with us from the Liberty Council. Matt, tell us about this situation in Little Rock.
Yeah, this is a situation, unfortunately, where the church outside in the community, they put on a Charlie Brown Christmas play. And Linus reads this story from the Gospel of Luke about Christmas. What is Christmas about? Charlie Brown, he reads parts of the Gospel of Luke. Well, the school, the elementary school, was going to allow the kids to go to this, but only if the parents consented. So people would have to get parental permission to be able to go. They weren't going to take them without the parents' notice and consent.
Like a field trip.
It was a field trip, yeah. And it would be off campus with the parents' consent. If the parents didn't want to consent, then they would stay at the school, and the school would provide them other options. So one atheist wrote a letter saying they were offended that this was being done because of the Charlie Brown Christmas play being Christian, and it was an establishment of religion. Unfortunately, the school got nervous and backed down. They said they're not going to actually do it anymore. They're not going to do it this year. Liberty Council, we sent a letter to the school district advising them that what they were doing was completely legal, also giving them free legal defense if this atheist would even follow through on a suit. And we also communicated with the pastor. The pastor got a little nervous, too, wondering whether or not the church would be liable. Of course, it wouldn't be. But also, we would stand with the pastor as well. We're hoping that next year, that this goes the way it's supposed to be. And this year, unfortunately, they didn't reverse themselves. But apparently the church did have the play, from what I understand, on the weekend. And then anybody in the community could have gone. But I'm sure a lot of the kids who otherwise were be able to have gone did not get a chance to go. So that's a sad situation. It's one of the examples of the war on Christmas that still exists and the absurdities of this situation where you have one group or one person writing in a letter and then the school backing down. This is a situation where we need to reverse this trend. And fortunately, in many respects, we've been able to be successful. In this particular case, unfortunately, the school backed down and didn't reverse its position.
Matt, what is? I'm really surprised that the pastor of the church was not better informed as to the church's potential liabilities. If schools are backing down, it's hard to imagine that a pastor would not know his First Amendment freedoms. You think this is a widespread ignorance of the law? You know, that pastors and churches are so easily intimidated by things that aren't even legally true?
Well, I think pastors and churches are far too easily intimidated by things that are not true. And I think in this particular case, that may have been the situation. But, you know, I wouldn't count this as a complete loss. We want to make sure we come back and that this is done next year. We had a situation in Medford, Massachusetts, in an elementary school a number of years ago. And they were going to have a little play for the kids around Christmas time. The parents knitted red and green elf hats. The school wouldn't allow the kids to say Merry Christmas as far as greeting one another, no Christmas-related music in the song that was religious. And then they told the parents, oh, you can't have these red and green elf hats. You got to redo them black and white because red and green are Christmas colors and we can't celebrate Christmas. Absurd things. We sent a letter saying that's not the law. In fact, what you're doing is actually violating the law because you're not showing neutrality and objectivity towards this issue. You're showing hostility toward a particular religious viewpoint, and that's unconstitutional. And the good news is, although it wasn't reversed that year, the next year, the school came back, reversed itself, red and green's now back in, Merry Christmas is okay, Christmas songs are fine. So I think we have to just be vigilant. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and we're not going to let go of the situation in Little Rock, Arkansas. We want to make sure that the church is well informed going forward, that they do this next year, and that the school is well informed and they know they're on solid legal ground and they've got backing.
This was in Little Rock, Arkansas. We're talking about the superintendent of schools there. I guess made the decision, and it was the Agape Church that was hosting the Merry Christmas Charlie Brown play. So it was the Terry Elementary School where the students were coming from. Well, maybe next year this will all go as it should, and that is the parents consent to the kids going on their field trip to watch the play at the church. And if they don't want to go, they don't consent. Nobody's forcing anything on anyone. Listen, Matt, what's your website? People want to read about this.
Yeah, they can go to Liberty Council's website, lc.org, and we want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas.
Absolutely, Matt. Same to you. Keep up the good work.
God bless.
Matt Staver from the Liberty Council. Ed and I will be back in just a couple of minutes. We hope you'll consent to join us.